It's the holiday season, the time of year to give and be generous and share happiness. In my last video about Apex, I was pretty harsh, but like I said, I love this game. So I thought, what better way to end the year than to be generous and look for the positives in Apex Legends? Of course, we all know Apex has its issues, but nothing can be all bad. So, let's dig deep and talk about the 10 things that Season 15 got right. We can't talk about Christmas without talking about money. I mean giving. Christmas is about giving. And if there's one thing the bigwigs at EA understand, it's giving. The new gifting system is at the bottom of the list because the vast majority of players will never use it. But content creators sometimes do special giveaways, and some of them have shared horror stories about their experience just trying to buy gifts for other players. With the new gifting system, much of the outside hassle has been removed, so even though most of us will never use this feature, it's still a nice quality of life change for content creators. In at number 9 is the Battle Pass skins. I think I speak for most of us when I say it feels like Battle Passes are starting to wear out their welcome. But look at this skin and tell me it's not heat. Look me in the eyes and tell me you don't rock with this top hat. This is the first Havoc skin since Season 1 that could ever replace the Silver Storm. And for those of us who don't like to spend money on the game, Respawn finally added some free skins to the Battle Pass that feel worth equipping. Say what you will about EA being greedy, and I will 100% agree with you, but some things are worth the money. And players who know how to save can usually get the Battle Pass for free anyway. Still, because it's a Battle Pass that newer players will have to pay for, I had to keep this one towards the bottom. But enough about money. Let's talk about something useful. Okay, I admit it, I'm a neat freak nerd who pays way too much attention to details in games, but hear me out. I've been playing a lot of Modern Warfare 2 lately, and this might be the worst menu system I have ever seen. So as a result, I've been paying a lot more attention to UI designs. Outside of the in-game mechanics, the user interface is the one thing players interact with the most. A bad UI may not kill a game, but it definitely won't go unnoticed. Remember when the Deathbox interface used to look like this? Think about how much better it felt when the shield swap got moved to here. That's the power of a simple UI change. And now, they've given the overview menu similar treatment. No longer do you have to go through 3 different menus to view and check off your new charm, or to equip new banner cards. Everything is visible at the press of a button by switching tabs. And if the unlock is in a category you don't care about, you can know immediately and just press the clear all markers button. For a person like me with a sickness that forbids any unchecked notifications, this new UI is fantastic. But it's low on the list because I know I am the only person who cares about this. Moving on. When we first got to test out the zip rails in the map preview, I must say I was not impressed. The map was basically all fog, so there was nothing to see, and the lack of visibility made the movement feel kind of slow. I was certain this new tool would just be another map device that would get players killed like the gravity cannons. I am happy to say though that I was wrong. You can still get beamed by decent players if you're not smart about how you use them, but zip rails are fun. They maintain the momentum you have when you jump on, and if you're clever, you can keep the momentum when you jump off. Because of zip rails, Broken Moon is another map like King's Canyon where Pathfinder feels incredible. They aren't perfect. Like most map traversal tools, they make movement legends even stronger, and they're susceptible to lost audio, which can lead to some very frustrating third parties. There's also the issue that there aren't many helpful rails in some of the map's more brutal choke points. But for all their issues, zip rails make rotating from edge POIs way more interesting, and they provide movement that is more flexible than gravity cannons while not being quite as unpredictable as a redeploy balloon. There's part of me that hopes zip rails can be implemented on some of the other maps, but for now, they're a gimmick that makes Broken Moon just a little bit more interesting. Last time, I talked about how the weapon meta has been a bit stagnant, and I stand by that. Still, there is one change to the ground loot that I was very happy to see this season: the return of the Mastiff. As good as the Peacekeeper is, I've always found it to be less appealing as a weapon. Something about the charging of it just always throws me off. But I've been a Mastiff enjoyer since the days when we used to call it the meme stiff in Titanfall 2. So when it was taken off the ground again, the game just felt like it was missing something. Sure, it was a squad killer when you got it from the care package, but for some reason I can only ever find the bow check. And playing Maggie just doesn't feel the same without her go-to weapon. Now, the world feels right again. The weapon meta overall still feels like it could use some tweaking, but my repeater Mastiff loadout is once again complete, and I'm happy with that. This one had to go in the middle because I can understand both sides of this argument. On one hand, many players are tired of getting the Overwatch treatment, where every year the holiday event is exactly the same and it seems like the developers are resting on their laurels. It feels lazy, and I think it's fair to want some variety every once in a while. Personally, I would love a new rendition of the Christmas arrangement at very least. But the reason this LTM still makes it onto this list is that the mode is actually fun. For some players, Winter Express is the best LTM in Apex and Christmas can't come soon enough. They wait around every year, possibly even leaving Apex just to return when their favorite event comes back. The mode is a classic, and at the moment, it's the only way to revisit the OG capital city. It's also a mode tied to what many consider to be the best season Apex ever had. There's a ton of nostalgia around Winter Express. If you think I'm crazy, just look how the Apex player count spiked when the Wintertide event released. Sure, maybe some Apex stands returned for the Wraith Prestige skin, but I'd wager there are tens of thousands of people who came back to the game just for this mode. And I think that alone earns Winter Express a spot on this list. In the past, the devs were always communicating with the player base. Some might argue a bit too much, but regardless of what you thought about the developers at the time, back then there was a clear line of communication between the people working on the game and the people playing the game. There were seasonal vlogs, patch note comments, AMAs, blogs about hot topics. We were extremely privileged, and unfortunately some people decided to use that privilege to berate and insult Respawn employees. So the devs dramatically decreased their interactions with the community. Before I go any further, I do want to say something. It is not okay to harass game developers. I want to clarify that there's nothing wrong with providing feedback or even expressing frustration with ongoing issues, but be respectful. There's a difference between providing criticism and attacking someone. So let's try to remember that the devs are people too. Their job is to work on the game, not to endure abuse. Anyway, off my soapbox. The past month or so, it really seems like Respawn is doing what they can to ensure that players feel heard. We've finally gotten feedback that the devs are unsatisfied with and working on the state of skill-based matchmaking, especially in pre-made groups. They've also talked about incoming changes for Seer. And even though we still don't have a date yet, they've also acknowledged the ever-evasive cross-progression. And there are rumblings of big things on the way that indicate Apex has a bright future ahead. The truth about players, as much as we may try to deny it, is that we are incredibly simple. Sure, we want progress, but even more than that, we want to feel heard. We want to know that the things we're saying are being listened to, even if they're not exactly acted on. And the recent string of communications from Respawn have helped to reaffirm that feeling. This is the only item on the list that I personally wish wasn't on here, but I have to acknowledge that I'm in the minority on this one. The people have spoken and the people do not like Stormpoint, especially for pubs. Now, in my opinion, it's awesome to have a map set on an island paradise with lots of water and foliage everywhere. And the map is large, so in ranked, you can take a lot more isolated fights with a bit more time between third parties. Unfortunately, none of these positives make the pub experience any better. At times on Stormpoint, teams can be so spread out that after the initial battle, you can go upwards of 5 minutes and literally see no one. Additionally, the map features hardly any mobility tools aside from these death traps, so Valkyrie becomes a must for most teams. If you're nearing endgame against a Valkyrie team and you don't have one on yours, you may as well chalk that up as a loss because you will be gatekept. Which wouldn't be so bad, except that Stormpoint contains multiple points where the high ground is essentially uncontestable. And if the lopsided map design and slow pacing don't irritate you, there's a good chance the local wildlife will. The prowlers on Stormpoint, even after the nerf, can be infuriating to deal with, especially during a fight. Like I said, I don't actually mind Stormpoint. The mill is one of my favorite POIs, and I wouldn't mind the map coming back for the ranked rotation. But the pub cycle might just be better off without Stormpoint, at least for the time being. Sitting at number 2, we have Tressa Crystal Smith, otherwise known as Catalyst. I predicted that she would fall from the heights of popularity and settle around the other defense legends. So far though, it looks like I was wrong. A month and a half later, Catalyst has settled exactly in the middle, and good for her. She did receive a change that prevented Seer's passive from working through her walls, and her outplay potential around Doris has only increased as players get used to using her. But you know what else is good about Catalyst? Her character design. Cat's kit is designed with a lot of cohesion, and even though the black goop on the ground may not be super strong, it is cool. I'm sure I can't be the only one that took one look at her intro animation and immediately thought of Raven. The witch outfit, the magic vibes, the black not quite liquid, it oozes with familiarity and character. The way she flicks her wrist to toss out traps makes it feel like she's casually whipping out minor spells. And there's just something that feels so great about when she raises her arms and a wave of black fluid slowly washes over the area in front of her. Once you get a feel for the character, Catalyst can be a lot of fun to play, and I think much of that can be attributed to her overall design. I mean, who doesn't love the goth chick? Speaking of love, I remember a time when I would comment how much I love this map, and everyone would dump on me in the replies, talking about how awful it was because the map was too big, despite it being smaller than World's Edge, and because they kept falling off the map. And while to this day, people are still falling to their death, I think most players have come around to realize that Olympus is a strong contender for best map in the game, or at least the least hated map in the game. Olympus has many strengths, tons of great POIs, lots of loot, multiple ways to rotate across the map, a design where tridents actually make sense, and the list goes on and on. But more importantly, Olympus avoids the pitfalls that make players hate the other maps. For instance, the map's size makes it harder to quickly third-party than King's Canyon, and the wide array of good POIs means that there isn't one place where everyone lands like Fragment. Sure, estates and gardens will always be hot drops, but depending on the direction of the ship, you can get tons of action at other places like Fight Night, Energy Depot, or Bonsai. And speaking of Bonsai, this is my favorite POI in the game. I fell in love the moment I first landed there. Tons of loot to support several teams, multiple levels, and lots of room to move around and outplay the other teams landing there. Just look at these wood floors. And there are many other beautiful POIs on this map. The overall aesthetic of Olympus feels cohesive, but no two places look alike, so there's a uniqueness to every encounter. This is hard to argue for a map like Broken Moon, where many of the locations start to blend together after a while. Yes, the Hammond Labs area is awful, but you can always just play the high ground. And with the new exits added to the area, it's actually possible to survive the chaos at Hammond Labs if you play smart. Overall, Olympus is just a solid map, and I think most of us will agree it's a good thing that the map has returned. So, did I miss anything? What are you enjoying about Season 15? Let me know in the comments below. Also, remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.